Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Natty Cast. And now to your hosts, Tim Barker, Rex Stull, and Ron Thomas.
So this is it. This is how this goes.
Yeah. This is it. This is great. No,
Yeah.
I love it. It's just run of the mill off the cuff. Yeah, I was worried I was going to be late. The traffic getting down here was very un-Cincinnati.
Like I said, opening day.
Yeah, I was like I said, there has to be something going on, or there's an accident. It's,
or both,
or maybe both. Right. So no, it was just.
Now, were you born and raised in Cincinnati, Brando?
Born in Athens, Greece.
Okay.
Yeah. So just I'll do a brief quickie. So my mom went to Greece with her girlfriend for a year to live.
It sounds like the opening of an 80s movie.
This is what's crazy. This is very much a movie. And she told me this like not too long ago. I mean, I kind of heard more of the full story. She goes to Greece with her girlfriend, meets my dad on a ferry boat, right? Like instant attraction. They start kind of dating a little bit here and there. Mom comes back to the States.
How was Menelaus' English at that point in time?
He was playing in a band, playing guitar and singing.
Okay.
And Shelley went to see some of the shows, and he totally was butchering all. They were playing like Stones and Beatles tunes and that whole By
the
60s.
way, our guest is Brando Triantafillou. So Menelaus Triantafillou would be his father.
Yes.
And Shelley Triantafillou is his mother.
Yes.
So
yes.
continue. Yes.
Right. So anyway, he was butchering lyrics. She got a kick out of that. So that was, but of course, any of the Greeks who were in the place didn't care. They're like, "Oh, it's wonderful, American music or British music." I guess it'd be British music.
They didn't know the difference.
They didn't know the difference. It wasn't Greek music. Let's put it that way. So anyway, she came back to the States. 2-3 months later, called my dad, said, "Hey, I'm pregnant." He said, "Oh, you got to come here, and we need to get married."
Yeah.
I mean, this was the time when that happened.
Brando, how? I didn't know this story.
You didn't know? I didn't know this either till not too
Well,
too
I guess
long.
if you didn't know it, then I would know it. Right?
Well, that's the thing, right? It's exactly. So,
And that's you. That's you in the womb, correct?
That's me. Yeah, I was the mistake, right? So,
Wait a minute. After the summer fling, Shelley comes back.
Yeah.
Pregnant. Didn't
didn't know it. Called him 2 months later and said, "Hey, I'm pregnant." Yeah.
Wow.
And then he said, "You got to come back. We got to get married." So she said, "Okay." She goes back to Greece. And there was a whole to-do because his parents, my grandparents, didn't want him to marry an American woman. They wanted him to marry a Greek woman. It was this whole thing. No, you stay Greek. It's blah, blah, blah. Especially, a blonde American woman. They were like, oh, this, They got married anyway. Tension between the family. There was that. Okay. At the time, when I was born...
This would have been 1966.
67.
Wow.
67.
No.
February of 67.
You were born in 67.
Yes.
So they got married in 66.
No, they got married after I was born.
Wait a minute.
Before. I'm sorry. Before. Yes. She went there, got married. Then I was born. Correct.
Okay, so
yes.
66.
Yes.
Okay. Right.
Yeah. So
a little.
Yes.
For the listeners at home. So little information. I've literally known Brando and his brother Eric and his family. I mean, truly my entire life. His mother and my mother were in like maternity stuff together when pregnant with Brando's brother. So Brando was born in February of 67. My brother Dave, former Nattycast guest, was born in March of 67. His brother Eric was born in May of 68, and I was born in June of 68. So we're both 15 months apart, and literally 1 month shifted. We kind of grew up together. So yes,
totally.
exactly.
Yes, and that's
how I knew this was 1966.
Yes, this is great intro. Right. Yes. So I'm right.
Oh,
we need the Kenny Loggins soundtrack for
that's right.
to underscore this.
Yes. So anyway, so she gets married. They get married. I'm born.
Now, did they move back here? Did they come back?
So not immediately. What happened is there was a coup in Greece, a military coup. This is what I'm telling you. This is a movie. This is totally a screenplay, right? So there's a military coup. So my dad's brother.
And now your mom is over there with him.
Yes.
Married, pregnant,
and
now there's a junta.
And now there's a junta in charge.
I just wanted to work junta.
And my grandfather, my dad's dad, actually worked for like the Greek secret police. He was like, there was the whole thing. Yeah.
Wow.
This is crazy. So this is what I'm saying. This is a movie script,
Was
right?
he overthrowing the government? Or was
No,
he...
but he was totally anti. He was there to kind of like get rid of communists. It was the whole thing, right? There was, of course, this was the Red Scare back, So okay. So anyway, so it ends up that this military junta is in taking over. They're not letting flights pretty much go in and out of the country. Only certain flights, right? So my dad's my father's brother, his older brother Tasso, was studying medicine, and he had gone to London, and he was in school, in med school in London at the time. My dad, and I was about 7 months old at this time. My mom wanted to leave. They wanted to come back. She said, we should go to the States. My dad was, his parents wanted him to stay, become an attorney. He said, no, I don't want to do that. He wanted to get into city planning and urban design. So they basically made the decision to move to the States. They couldn't get out. Well, my dad couldn't leave. He only could get a 3-week visa to England.
Okay.
He goes to England, but he goes like I believe my mom got out first. She called her brother in East Lansing, Michigan, who was in touch with a state senator there, who called the U.S. consulate in Athens and got me and my mom on a flight.
Yeah,
to the States.
Probably needed a passport.
That's how we did, right? So, and because if she was, my mom, I was technically an American citizen because born to my mother. I'm also dual citizenship because I was a Greek father and born in Greece. Anyway, so it ends up that my mom and me and my dad come back, and then they were in East Lansing, Michigan for a little while. My dad worked at doing something with a tire factory or something.
But he had to wait in London for a while to get a visa to come in, or?
I think he was in London, then I think once he got there, he could get out. I think it was just a matter of time. But the trick was that they couldn't go together out of that. They couldn't leave Greece together.
Okay, gotcha.
So that was how it happened. So my dad basically, and I think it was about 8 years. I think it was when I understand that he couldn't go back to Greece.
Well, I remember too, for some reason as a kid, I remember, because there was some land or money or property over there. But I do remember when you guys were growing up, like you couldn't take money out of Greece, right? That was a thing. Like money couldn't leave the country, and right, it was a different time.
It was a different time.
Right? Yeah.
It was a totally different time. Yeah. A great memory, Rex. I mean, all that stuff I can't remember, but it's so it ends up that basically, after that period of time in the junta and that military was out of power, and at that point, my dad, we could go back and visit. So interestingly enough, when I turned 21, actually I turned 18. When I turned 18, there were 3 attempts that the Greek government sent a letter to the address that was on my birth certificate in Greece, in Athens, and they said you have to show up for military duty.
Oh, they had mandatory military service.
It's a 2-year military service, right? So I didn't respond, of course, because I didn't live there. None of us lived there.
Right.
And whoever was living in that apartment, and whatever. So they tried 2 more times, and then after the 3rd time, they put deserter status on my file. Right?
Oh, dude.
So this is so I wanted, the next time I wanted, now I had gone back to Greece as a kid before I turned 18. So none of this even mattered. So I turned 21, and it was the next time I wanted to go back. And so I'm a little bit concerned. I got my U.S. passport. I'm like, okay, so,
But you knew this might be an issue.
Well, there was a little bit of a like, in the back of your mind, like, but
Red flag.
Greece is not.
They're pretty laid back.
Yeah, I mean, come on, they're So I go, and right. Getting in was fine, and then I was there for whatever it was, a couple weeks, 10 days, and my uncle went with me to the airport, into customs and whatever, we got through, and if there's any problem, it was fine. They stamped my passport, I left. So it was cool. But that's why I said it kind of read like a script. I mean, and you could embellish all kinds of fun things in it.
But let's circle back then. So you really your connection to Cincinnati was due to your mom being from Cincinnati, and that because
my mom was from East Lansing, Michigan.
Okay,
and then they moved here. I think it was mainly because of at UC they had a DAAP, the Department. Design, Arts, Architecture, and Planning. Mm-hmm. And my father got in, and that's where he went to do his undergraduate studies.
So how long were you living in East Lansing then?
I think it was about a year-ish.
Okay. So you moved to Cincinnati when you were about
We moved to Cincinnati, and then Eric was born here.
Well, I was going to say, I could track to, so if Eric was born in May of 68, and when Shelley and my mom were pregnant with us together, So they had to be down here by then.
Yeah, it was quick. I mean, it was probably under a year because I was already 7 months old when we moved. So,
okay.
Yeah. So that was kind of that was the yeah. And then we moved like several times, anyway, yeah. It was, and then that was kind of the beginning of living in Cincy here, yeah.
And so, was Clifton always is it the neighborhood you say you grew up in, or?
Pretty much. I think when my parents first moved here, we lived on Lion Street, which was up near UC. There was a little apartment up there. So yeah, Clifton. And then there was a time though after that we moved to Green Hills.
At some point you moved to Boston. Too,
and then my dad got accepted to Harvard to get his master's in urban planning, and we left. We were there for a couple of years.
How old were you at that point?
Let's see, that was 75, so I was 8?
Okay.
Ish, little. And then then came back and moved to College Hill after, I think in 77 it was. Lived there for a year, I believe, and then moved over to Morrison Avenue in Clifton, where we pretty much
That's the house I know and love.
That's the house and we were there until after high school, moved out in college, of course, and then So
do you have memories of Boston that you
I do. I mean, lots of snow. I remember walking up the street in Boston. We were on this street.
You probably were over in Cambridge, I would assume, over near where Harvard was.
We were on a street called, because my geographical knowledge of Boston is, we were on a street called Belmont, and it
one of those that goes.
It was
through
a
the
big
whole
street
of
that
the,
intersected like a massive thoroughfare,
right.
4-lane road, and so I just remember walking up the street, Eric and I, and we used to go and get those massive Charleston Chew candy bars.
Yeah, that'll rip a cavity right out of the tube.
Right,
that's a filling right out.
And we had many fillings. So that was so that was a couple of years in Boston and then back to Cincy. Mm-hmm.
I have a sense that I think your dad ended up. My dad was working at Channel 5, and I think your dad, like early days, got a job maybe in the setup department or something.
Maybe.
I think that's how they originally met.
That's interesting. I think yes. Now
almost like a part-time gig or something down in the setup, and he met him. Yeah. And I think that's introduced our mothers, and I think that's kind of how that whole thing happened.
I do remember. This is funny because I remember when my mom and dad moved to, I think it was actually the first place or second place we lived before Green Hills. I think there was an in-between place called Evanswood Place, which is right in Clifton. We were in an apartment, and my mom had a piano. And she just said, she asked your mom and dad, do you think that David could come and help Menelaus move his piano? It was like a baby grand piano.
Yeah. Two-man job.
Your dad was like, I will never move a piano for Shelley again. That was like his. I just remember him saying it was just but I remember when we came back from Chicago, he told us that story, so it was kind of funny. So yeah.
I don't know.
So how does SCPA get on your map, man? How do you
SCPA? Okay, so I went.
Your dad has a hernia from moving the piano.
Rex's dad was laid up for a while.
Yeah,
we Montessori school, and then
that's right.
Remember, we all went. Yeah, we went to the Montessori school, the one there in
down on Eastern
Euler?
Avenue.
Eastern Avenue. Yeah,
Montessori Center Rooms. You went to West, Tim.
Oh, right. Yes. Euler.
Right. We were in the East, Montessori Center Rooms East.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's right. And then after that was Clifton School for elementary school.
Yep. Me too.
Right.
Wait a minute, so that means you guys probably were at elementary school together, TB.
Yeah, but
you might not have known that, but
like I know it's like that's like with Dan Banky, who went to high school with us, because so it's vague, but yes. I don't recall. I just remember your Eric, like coming to performing arts, but like all of that is because we played soccer together. So it was like then you got that in the mix, and whether
That's
I'm
right.
remembering
Clifton Cats.
soccer or exactly.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah, no, and we were it was Montessori, and then we'd left and gone to Boston, then back.
Right.
And then Clifton was probably the 5th grade, I think, Clifton School, 6th grade. Then in 7th grade, PA, went to Performing Arts, and started out in art as an art major.
But how did that get on your radar? Like how you knew of it because of the
Eric
stalls,
was there.
or like so Eric was there before you?
Eric had been going there, I think, since the 4th grade. So he had been going there for a couple of years.
Okay.
After like when I was in Clifton School, 5th and 6th grade, he was 4th and 5th grade at PA, and then. Yeah, I said, well, yeah, let me go look at Performing Arts, and then that's kind of how it went. Yeah.
Okay.
Right. So you were in art while you were there, right?
I was in art. I started out in art, and then I
No,
remember.
hang on, but can you draw and?
Well, that's what I did.
Visual artist.
Yeah, it was visual arts.
Because
Brando's a great artist.
Right, because I know Eric is.
Eric-
Your brother is.
Yeah,
but-
Eric was definitely a great artist and did a lot of graphic design work actually after school.
Right. Yeah.
I just have to say you're a super talented family. I mean, front to back, top to bottom. I mean, seriously though, right? I mean, your dad, your mom, music, art. I mean, through all sorts.
We're all
of
the crazy arty farty. Family. Yeah,
business not so much. You got a good business mind.
I'm kind of the more business one. I think. I don't. My dad. No. Mental assets.
He wasn't at Harvard for an MBA. He was there
No.
for,
He was. I won't even tell you about what the Greeks never wanted to pay taxes. I mean, nobody does, but they didn't pay them.
No, I was going to say the Greeks. There's a special place.
There's a special place
for
with the Greeks with taxes. No, they and so my dad kind of followed that and got into a little bit of.
But you mentioned that
later on with
you mentioned he played in a band. Do you think you got that in the genes
from
him?
The music thing, yeah, I mean, it could have been. I don't know. Maybe there's some, I just know that when I was in PA in the 7th grade, I was doing the art thing, and then I started taking some music classes, and I took from Steve Barry, who was the music teacher, the band teacher at the time, was basically I don't think there was even a percussion
department.
Teacher. There wasn't even a percussion department at the time.
Wow. And
I really got interested in drums. I just somehow drums just kind of like really interested me. And my dad, I mean, this is crazy. So my dad, being at DAAP, they had these huge cardboard. It was like I don't even know what you'd carry on, these cardboard barrels almost.
Yeah, the sonotubes.
Yeah, and so I cut one in half and just used the bottom of it, and I turned it on its side and I made it a bass drum.
Oh, nice.
Okay.
And then I made this pedal with like two 2x4s and a spring between it.
You kind of built your own.
I
drum
built my
kit.
own drum kit. My parents bought me a snare drum. It was the only drum, the only real drum I had, with a little snare drum stand that I could practice, rudiments. And I built a hi-hat stand out of like copper tubing and this whole thing. And I got 2 hi-hat cymbals and a clutch. And the thing kind of worked. I made a tom, and I used the tubing. And my dad had this mylar that they used to have for these kind of transparent mylar things that they were doing for transparencies and whatnot. So I'd take that and I'd staple it to the side. You'd hit it once and the thing would rip. It's like, so I just basically my parents after a while were like, well, you seem pretty serious about this. So I got a little drum kit.
Your single-use drum kit. You decided
My single use, exactly. Okay, you can't be really careful about that fill that you do because you only get one time.
Wait, okay. So when you started taking music lessons, what instrument was it?
It was drums. And Steve Barry, I just mentioned him. He showed us like the people in who wanted to play drums how to hold drumsticks. Like Steve knew a very, very
Really?
Yeah. He said, now you go out and get yourself a pair of 2B drumsticks. Now 2Bs are pretty thick, so they're good for learning on. Because you're hitting them. And he'd hold them, and he'd say, okay, and you play this, and everybody would practice pads, and we'd start.
I think those when they become like band teachers in school, right, through that certification process, I think they have to learn just enough about all of the things, like how do you hold drumsticks?
Exactly. How do you hold a drumstick? How do you hold a trumpet? I mean, he was a trumpet player, but like whatever, sax, just to get a sense of, you can kind of show a kid. So and that got me started. And then
here's my question though. Here's my question though. But it comes to rhythm. Okay, I feel like there's when it comes to drums, man, like I would think with like, horn or like any kind of brass element, that's breath control and that kind of thing.
Right.
With drum, can you teach someone drums, or is it kind of inherently to have that rhythm to play something like that?
That's a great question, Tim. Yeah, that's a really good question.
Because
Yeah, no, and to your point, there are some people who can pick up instruments. They just pick it up and they just kind of start doing whatever. And I would put Prince in that category as kind of a multi-instrumentalist who can play pretty much any rhythm section instrument. I don't know if he plays any horn instrument or string instrument, but guitar, bass, keyboards, drums. Stevie Wonder, another one. And there's a bunch of people who can do that. But as far as learning the basics of an instrument, how to hold it, if you're going to read music, if you're going to start taking lessons, all of that is something that, the schooling, definitely you need to have that, practicing, getting all that done. I think though, to the question of rhythm and feel and time as a drummer, those are to me, those are literally feel and time are the two most important things. There are, and I'll say that with any musician who's playing, aside from somebody who, I would even include classically trained players. And I'll use this as an example. So let's just say you get some kid who's, played the violin starting at 5, and the parents were, you're doing lessons, you're going to do this, you're going to play those violin concertos, and they're amazing. And so by the time they're 15, they can just play the crap out of these super fast, violin concertos and whatnot, really technically difficult stuff. But if you ask to emote feeling as a musician from somebody who's been very, very focused on the technique of it, you don't get much heart.
Right.
You can teach technique, but you can't. Talent.
You can't teach the feel, the heart, the kind of what you put in as a human being. That's a different thing. Now, you can have both, and it's tremendous, right? You get an amazing technique and somebody who can just, I'll put Bill Evans as a jazz piano player. I think he's like that. Amazing technique and just what he emotes when he plays. But same thing. So getting back to drums, the same thing.
Because my air drumming never, I think is what you're getting at, Tim. I never even with the air drums, I just couldn't. Yeah. Come on, there's a level of coordination involved. There's definitely because you think about drum kit and not just percussion. So let's just say percussion, we'll say orchestral percussion. So timpani, marimbas, mallet instruments, snare drums, cymbals, all of the things. Triangle, right. You've got 98 bars of rest and then one ding, right? Just make sure you count right. Right. So all of that ancillary percussion, if you will, or that's non-drum kit oriented. But if you're playing drum kit, or a lot of times they'll call it a trap kit. You're playing with 4 limbs. You got 2 hands, 2 feet, and you have to coordinate. So, and learning how to do that, and playing dynamically, not and how you play, whether you're left-handed or right-handed. There's also that. Same thing with playing guitar. Sometimes Paul McCartney is a left-handed bass player, and he plays, I think less so with guitar, though, right? It's much easier to set a drum kit up.
Yeah, guitars, you have to wind the strings back. Everything's flipped. But drum kit, it's put everything goes basically opposite. Now there's some drummers that are left-handed people. They write with their left hand, but they play right-handed kit. One famous drummer was Ringo Starr from the Beatles. He was a left-handed, left-handed.
He's a left-handed person,
but he plays right-handed.
Kit,
So he leads all of his drum fills with his left hand, which is a very different feel than leading with your right hand as a right-handed drummer. And so that's something that he had a certain sound that way. Yeah.
And would you say that came naturally for you? That was just an easy fit? You just it was seamless?
I felt like it was, it felt right. It felt, but it was never easy. I guess, it wasn't like I just sat behind a drum kit and went, oh yeah, I can just start playing. I had to work at that. Yeah. No.
What part wasn't easy? The rhythm or the feel?
Both.
Really?
Yeah. It took time to kind of develop, like anything, what do you, 10,000 hours you put into something, it's the time to work on technique and to understand, and here's the other thing too, varying styles of music. So if you're playing a jazz piece, a big band style of playing, or you're playing a pop rock thing and you're doing something that's a Latin style, right? All those rhythmic styles and even the style, the way you approach the drum kit is different. Jazz playing in essence, from a drum standpoint, is kind of top down. So the ride cymbal, you guys, ching, ching, ding, ching, ding, ching, ding, ching, ding, ching, ding. That's top down. You ching, ching, ding, ching, boom, 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 right? So rock and roll is bottom up. Boom, cut, boom, cut. You're thinking from the bottom. So the thought process and how you actually approach those styles changes. And if you can live in both camps or 3 camps or 5 camps, whatever, you're going to be a much more successful player because you can go there and so.
Wow.
Well, you always, whenever you see those great session musicians, and I've been lucky enough to hear some of them play. Sometimes I went and heard a speaker in Nashville. I mean, I'll never forget it. So it was a speaker demo, and they had one of the basically sessions band. They played with Charlie Daniels, whatever. These guys, just a group of them up there, and they were there playing a country song when we walked in, then a rock and roll song, then a jazz song, then a pop song. Yeah. These guys could play
anything, and they nail it.
And nail it.
Yeah. That's the sign. Those are great players, and that's why those guys are always going to be first call for doing record dates. And
I didn't know any of them. And I probably heard them play on a million records.
Right.
Everything.
Yeah.
You and I have had some conversations about that, actually.
Oh, yeah.
Brando and I,
Yeah. No, absolutely. I mean, it's, and, it's interesting, too. In Nashville, a lot of the session cats, many of them are, and this is the kind of thing these guys pay, these guys and women, I should say, I can't exclude women, they have to pay their dues on the road. So they go out on the tour for years, and then, okay, you've earned your stripes. Now you can get the call and go in and have your tech set your gear up, you come in and play.
Yeah.
So
Okay, so Stephen Barry gives you this, opens your world to percussion, and now you're a senior. Are you like, I want to make this my life? Like, what's senior Brando thinking about?
I'm thinking
college or continuing?
Yeah. I mean, I think it's interesting too, because along the way, kind of maybe during my, I don't know, sophomore year, I really got interested in, like, I'd listened to records and songs on the radio, and that was really interested in production, just have song production and sonics and how things kind of worked that way.
You picked up guitar too at some point.
I did pick up guitar. It was maybe my freshman year or something. I started playing the guitar. Yeah. Played in West Side Story. I hardly knew what I was doing, but
enough, but better than the next guy.
I played enough. I played enough to be dangerous. Yeah.
Was that you then on the
up in the balcony, just shredding
somebody's riffing in the balcony.
Side Story.
That's right. Well, I do remember. I will say real quick. I remember we were in rehearsals and we were doing. Was it Cool? The name of the tune, right? Yeah. And so the melodies, and so it only is written in the conductor's score that Vibes. Well, it's written that Vibes is doing it, and so the vibe player was nailing it. He's playing all the stuff. Of course, it's written as somebody else is supposed to play, but it didn't say who that player was. And it actually is the guitar player. And so I have the chart in front of me, and Steve Barry said, somebody else is supposed to be playing this melody. Who has it? And I just kept my mouth shut because I had no idea how to. I think by maybe the end of the production, I finally could play it.
You sat and worked it out.
I worked it out, right? Exactly. Because that was I was green. Anywho, so yeah, I'm sorry. So to digress. So going back to got into sound and how all that happened, and then. After my senior year, I looked at, or even during the senior year, was looking at programs that had, music production, degree programs, bachelor's of music degree programs that had audio engineering, and there really, honestly, there weren't a lot at the time.
Right.
Now they're a dime a dozen. There's tons of them now.
I think around here, the only one available at that time was in Indiana. Indiana University had an audio technology program. I think they called it. Yeah.
Well, Ohio State. So this is crazy. So Ohio State, they had just opened, I guess, the year before or whatever, this audio department. And so I was like, well, you know what? I can't find anything else right now. I'm going to go there. I'll get some general studies and whatever and just do that. So I go up literally I think it was 2 or 3 months before the fall semester started. The professor who was going to teach the course left. So so the whole thing stopped, right? So, I just went up. I was already there. I went up and just did, for 2 quarters, I went up and just, the general stuff.
Well, so you started at OSU?
At Ohio, yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that.
And then I came back the 3rd quarter. Moved back to Cincy to just to finish up at UC for a quarter, because I was like, you know what? And it was actually during that year I found out about the University of Miami in Florida had a degree program in music engineering, and that was where I applied there during my freshman year. Got in. I had to go down to audition, so I went down and auditioned on drums, and they accepted me. And then went
What
down.
do you use?
That next year.
What's your audition for something like that? What are you using? Like, what do you?
It's what a lot of it is like. I think a lot of it's just playing rudiments on a snare. Literally, like a lot of it's playing rudiments. And they have like their audition criteria. They have like, okay, you got to play. And there was some mallet work I had to do on marimba. There's some timpani work, So I was working with John Gardner.
Yeah,
He was a percussion teacher, performing arts, and
because during your time from Steve Barry, the trumpet player, saying buy these sticks and pound on something, they did actually get a percussion. They got a percussion teacher, right.
John Gardner, who was a great teacher, and still teaching to this day. And he's just shout out to him. So got all my audition material together, got in. Now the caveat was that I didn't get into the music engineering department. I got in as a music student into the music school.
So you're allowed to come play drums. You just can't be behind the.
I couldn't. Well, no. I actually wasn't. I wasn't. I had to take a year of college calculus to get in.
To get into the audio program.
Because what the degree what the degree program was, it was a 4-year degree, but now they've made it a 5-year, which is just too much material. It's a bachelor in music with a minor in electrical engineering.
Oh.
So you're actually taking EE courses.
Oh, okay.
Right. So I had to take two semesters of college calculus, and I think I got B's.
That's just great.
You do what you do.
You're a better man than I.
But the other thing too is in the mid late 80s. The price of just even building a recording studio for you guys to run was tremendous.
It's ridiculous, right?
It was so expensive.
No, absolutely. I'm a totally different kind of time. Technology was a different place. But I got in and
analog.
An analog. It was all analog, right? Yeah. And digital was just coming into its own, starting in the 80s. So I got in the following year, and then I had basically 3 years, and then finished there. Came back to Cincy, and I technically didn't finish. I did an internship for a semester at what is now, what was at the time Sound Images, which was which is right in the old Richter Phillips building. And Sound Images is no longer. The business was closed a little while ago. So I did my internship there, and then
that was a recording studio. And
they were doing full on. Music production, writing. They had an in-house staff composer, as well as an in-house audio post-production engineer, and in-house audio music engineer.
So commercial jingles.
So it was it was pretty much all commercial jingle work. Right. So they were composing jingles, they were recording jingles, and then they also had a post-production side where they're just actually doing all the standard post-production stuff. We were doing, Pete Rose would come in, and so back in the day, yeah. So I was there, and then I at the same time I was playing drums on a houseboat.
This sounds good.
On the Kentucky side. This was hilarious. It was a top 40 band. I forget the name of was it called the Bell? I can't remember. It was bigger than a normal steamboat. It was like a giant thing that they built.
And it would go out doing
No,
dinner
it
cruises?
was docked. It was completely docked, but it was built on the water. And they put a tremendous amount of money to this thing, and it never went anywhere. We were there for a year playing top 40.
Was it like a nightclub?
Yeah, it was like a nightclub thing, dinner, and people come and dance, and it was like it was just very anyway.
Oh, at the Covington Landing.
Yeah, I think it. Yeah, right there. Yeah.
Okay.
I forget what it was called.
Thing.
So I was there. Yeah, I was there. Yeah, playing top 40 music for a year while I was doing my internship and whatnot. So that's and then the transition for me getting and leaving Cincy was I applied for work in Chicago, LA. I didn't do New York, but I think I actually did Toronto, Canada. There were some positions available as an audio engineer.
Okay. So you'd kind of made the decision. I really would like to go be
Let's get into doing audio engineering. Yeah. And part of it was, I didn't want to go out and just do gigging and performing. It wasn't,
right.
It wasn't in my heart of hearts. And what I ultimately later came to realize is that I'm kind of like just a studio rat. I love to create in a room and build from nothing. There's just something about that, creating like ideas and just going, let's just realize this. That to me is, it's like writing. I mean, it's like writing a story.
I don't know if we've mentioned this here, but Brando wrote the theme song for the Natty
Cast. That's right. That was
That's
I
right.
mean, which was, actually, I think kind of a testament. It was a fantastic, quick conversation. Walking down the street, we said, "Hey, would you do it?" Sure. You called me. I think I was in Miami. Yeah. And you're like, "Hey, I just talked to Ron. Just a couple ideas of feel. Like, what are you hoping for?" Yeah. And I mean, and I'm not a person with no notes. I had no notes when it came in. I was like, "This is awesome."
Hey,
we totally captured everything we wanted to do.
That's great. I appreciate that, guys.
That's a great question, Rex, because it's like, can you kind of like talk us through like what do you do with that? Like when someone presents you with something like that, like what's your how do you create that?
So I mean that's kind of like, and I have always said this, that like I got into doing composing after working, and I'll just, and to answer your question here, Tim, I just want to kind of ramp into it because I think it'll help to kind of explain what I'm going to explain. So I did the engineering thing. I worked at a post-production house. I was an assistant engineer doing recording voiceover, doing sound design, doing whatever. We did work for, I mean, you name it, all the huge clients. It was in Chicago. And I worked for McDonald's
but again, mostly commercial
all
work?
Commercial work. All commercial work, right.
Yeah.
And I learned the ropes of doing audio post-production work, and how it intertwines with film and video. Met a lot of great editors and directors and color correction people and VFX people, and did that. And then the company closed in '96, and I and two other partners opened up a company called Rhythm Cafe, our own company. We had a job for True Value Hardware for a national campaign that we were literally in the middle of composing and working on. And the company closed. We had to find a place to rent.
Your studio literally just kind of went out.
The place that we were working in the big studio where I was hired as doing post-production work. We had a little writing room we'd put together. That closed, and we were basically homeless, the three of us, in terms of an office space. So we found a space, rented it, built a space ourselves, built a little recording studio in it.
So you had to buy all the gear and
we bought all the gear. We bought a small console. We bought, we were doing at that point, it was...
Again, I'm not sure people really understand because you can, with your laptop now, you can outperform.
You can do right. No, it's completely different.
But I mean, this was still expensive.
It was expensive. Oh no, it was expensive. We actually got a loan, got a small business loan, did the build out ourselves. Literally, we had one of my business partner's brothers was a carpenter. He helped us, so did the whole thing, and put the thing together. We were there from 96 to 2000.
Did you keep that contract? Were you able to keep that?
We did. Yes. So to get back to that, so we composed this music for this True Value campaign, and this is a hilarious story. So Hootie and the Blowfish were really popular at this point, right?
Sure.
And
96. I mean, that was
this was the time, right? And so Leo Burnett was the ad agency that did the campaign for True Value. They were one of the big. They're one of the biggest in the world. Yeah, there's big ones. Yeah, they're one of the big ones. So this funny thing happened. So apparently, Leo Burnett got a call from Hootie's
Darius?
Hootie and the Blowfish, Darius's grandmother. And as the story goes, this is what I remember. So Darius's grandmother called and somehow got a hold of Leo Burnett and said that we were like taking Hootie and the Blowfish's music, and that this is like we were infringing on it or something, like stealing his ideas. She heard this music and said it sounded like Hootie and the Blowfish, and that she thinks they might do a lawsuit thing here. Copyright.
The grandmother.
The grandmother. Wow. So.
Damn.
Yeah.
Grandma was watching the soap.
Grandma was watching something, and True Value came on, and it sounded like Hootie, but there's no singing.
The Dolphins made me cry, but on the True Value commercial.
Right. So apparently though that Leo Burnett, the attorneys were like, well, I can find 20 other pieces of music sound exactly like this. You have no case, and that was the end of that. Anyway, so that was the beginning of our Rhythm Cafe, which was the first company I owned in Chicago, with 2 other partners. And we had that. I was there for 10 years, and we did a lot of work. We actually got to go to, I got to go to Australia, to Sydney, to help shoot a commercial for. We did a lot of work, we had a good amount of work for Philip Morris, which now is Altria.
Yeah.
Altria, I can't remember the name of the company.
You were hawking cigarettes.
We were hawking cigarettes. We were working on commercials that were being shown in Russia and Brazil, and
Oh, that's okay.
Yeah.
They can smoke.
they can smoke as long as they're right. So, so we got to travel to some places that do some fun things. Recorded the Czech Philharmonic at the Rudolf Neum in Prague.
Oh, wow.
For a Maytag campaign. That was kind of fun. Ironically, during that session, I remember that the conductor, who didn't speak any English, we had a translator. In the morning, we were there, and the orchestra's playing. And by the way, we went there to do the orchestra because we were going to use the Chicago Symphony. The entire budget for the whole thing was going to be eaten up by the orchestra itself. Just to pay the orchestra and the rental of music hall there. So it was forget it. We couldn't do it. So they took us to. We went to Prague and
take the whole show on the road to.
We
Prague.
took the whole show on the road to Prague, and
Wow.
and so. Anyway, so it was so funny because during the session in the morning, the conductor's like, anything you need, and blah, blah, blah. So at lunch, he found out that he was not being paid in U.S. dollars. And so he wanted to get the session done as fast as he could. Anyway, that was a fun memory. But so we, I was there for 10 years.
The inflation was so high.
Inflation was so high, yeah. So, but we had a really good time being able to do those. And those projects, that was before, that all happened basically before the year 2000 and before 9/11. After 9/11, after 2000, when before 9/11, when the .com bubble burst, and Napster started taking over, right? Remember, file sharing came up.
Yeah.
So it ended up that it ended up that record labels, their artists people weren't buying CDs anymore. It started to kind of say, file sharing and get this free music we can just put online.
It's all free.
It's all free. Everything's free, right? So this was the beginning of the end of the way the whole record industry and the label paradigm, the way that
Everything worked.
It was all worked.
Yeah.
It was all, the whole thing was changing.
It blew up the business model.
It blew it
entirely.
up. Totally blew it up. So we, at that point, we found ourselves in competition with artists, big and small, because what happened is, before all this happened, you would never see an artist caught dead having their music on a commercial. They were, I'll never put my music on a commercial,
Right, sure.
right? Because it was too beneath them.
Yeah.
But now they're not selling records. They're not making as much money anymore. Well, sure, if somebody wants to license one of their songs. So all of these labels were going directly, the A&R people were going directly to ad agencies saying, hey, here's our roster of artists that are willing to license their songs to you.
And they were just picking off the shelf pop songs.
And they were picking who they want. Now they were negotiating astronomical sums.
Sure.
But the agencies were like, wow, great. I can have, these creatives who are like these, 20 somethings are like, oh my God, my favorite artist. Let's get him to do it,
Yeah.
Who cares? $500,000, $1 million, whatever. I remember when Apple came out with their first iMacs. And they were the round ones, and they were different colors. They looked like little, the lifesavers or whatever.
Yeah.
And they had the commercial. They're all spinning around. Yeah. And I remember they used the song, the Rolling Stones song. It was "She Comes in Colors Everywhere." I can't remember the title of that's what it is. So pardon me, but I remember hearing that Mick Jagger, who's basically did all the negotiating for the Stones, wanted $12 million to license the song, and Apple finally and the Stones finally decided on $4 million.
Wow.
Okay, so $4 million for one commercial for one song.
Yeah, and actually they didn't really do anything.
And they didn't do anything.
Yeah.
They just said, yeah, you have the rights to use it.
Yeah.
So, but now, even now, that is you don't hear that at all now.
Yeah.
There aren't artists are not getting anywhere near that anymore.
Well, that's why they're selling their catalogs.
That's why they sell their catalogs.
Yeah.
That's a good point, Tim. Yeah, Neil Young, Bruce Blondie, Bruce Springsteen.
I think Fleetwood Mac, or at least Stevie Nicks did.
Stevie Nicks, yeah. I think
Bob Dylan did.
Bob Dylan sold his.
Yeah.
So they're and I think the highest grossing one, from what I understand right now, it's not officially determined, or the exact amount was Bruce Springsteen was $500 million, for his catalog.
But I honestly, you think about these artists who fought through all of these changes for the year, and they do have these catalogs, and they're aging. And you think, hey, why? I mean, what am I going to do? What, my kid's going to have to deal with this?
Exactly.
With somebody calling them saying, I want to use it for a Lay's commercial.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's the thing, so, and they might have some kind of a deal that says, anything that you create that's new, well, maybe it's not part of that catalog, but then you can, so the whole thing. So again, legacy artists like that who came up before the internet age, who were able to have a career selling records, touring, making enough money, having enough standing to be able to
still own their publishing.
Own their publishing, because a lot of them, a lot of them didn't own it in the beginning. They were able to buy it later. Yeah. Those groups of artists just aren't as many of them anymore. So getting back to what we were doing, we were competing now against all of these artists who were available to license their music. So how do I compete against that? Right. Mm-hmm. I'm a nobody. I'm just this guy who's like, let me make some music for you. So we were able to find, I think, through some of that, there was difficulty and a kind of a change in how we had to do our business model. And now at the same time, I was also doing a lot of audio post work. So it wasn't just composing and producing music for TV commercials and whatnot. I was doing a lot of post production work too. So I'd record voiceovers and do sound design work and mixing, and so I had kind of this two-tiered thing, right? So I love to create music. I love to create sound design too, which is not really music at all, and build sound design beds and things that have to do with against picture or whatnot, or like I say, even for radio. So it's kind of theater of the mind that way. So that was another side of another kind of thing that I love to do that allowed me to, when music wasn't as busy, then I could fall back on these other avenues. So there's other avenues, and I've and so when I go and do like master classes now and talk to students at different universities, I'll tell them, look, you gotta, if you want to do one thing or a couple things really good, do that. That's great. Focus on that, but have a group of things that you can also fall back on and do, or at least offer a client service, because you may be able to and not have to spend the money on somebody else.
And again, a phone call or whatever, you're able to compose, record, and send us a file for this yourself. I mean, you didn't go out.
I didn't go out. No, I did it all myself.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. And there are certain things I can't do.
But let's circle back to what you can. So talk us through that process. Like, how do you, in this particular case, for doing the theme music for this, like, how do you, what do you do? Like, you get the idea, and then how does that work?
So that's So I'll give you a scenario. So let's say that a client and I'll just say this just as it could be any client, but let's say a client comes to me and they say, hey, we have this, this, whatever it is. Maybe it's a long format video, maybe it's a commercial, maybe it's something like a documentary, maybe it's I call that music for picture, and music for music's sake.
Like scoring a documentary, or writing
pre-score music and all that. I'll get into that in a sec. But as far as like music that's not for music's sake, so let's say we're not producing music to say, hey, this is music as a song or something to listen to, not for that. This is for a visual medium. Let's say, I will talk to a client and say, okay, what are you looking for? What are you thinking? Usually if it's an ad agency, there might be a creative director, right? A copywriter, an art director, some producers involved. And they'll say, well, we're thinking, they might already have a rough cut done, or they're talking about, we talk about it. Maybe we'll talk about something before a shoot has even happened, and start to kind of to coalesce around ideas creatively, what they want this to be. And so we kind of all, and they may send me examples of something and say, we like this song, or we like this scene in this movie, and it has this music.
This Hootie and the Blowfish song. No, I'm sorry.
Yes, there was a Hootie and the Blowfish song, right. And then, exactly. And then they'll say, great, we want this, many times, and there's been a few times where, they will say, hey, we like this. We want you to get as close as you can. Just don't get us sued.
In the style of
Oh, yeah.
This.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, and there's people who want to push it and push it and push it.
Right.
And, we need to have them sign, indemnity clauses, so that, hey, if there's something that happens, we're not liable,
Right.
And there have been jobs and projects we've lost because of that, because they didn't want to do that. So, but we didn't feel comfortable enough saying this can go out, because, we could be sunk very quickly. So essentially, Tim, to get back to that, we'll talk about a creative direction, if you will, which is kind of, okay, what's the feel that you're looking for? What's the style? And I'll ask questions about, broad strokes. What kind of energy are you looking for? Are you looking for fast tempo, medium tempo, slower tempos?
Right.
Can you give me any specifics on kind of instrumentation that you're hearing? Or, somebody says, yeah, I want this to be like a piano thing with strings. Okay, let's go there. This is real simple, right? Okay, great. So piano and strings, that's a very, very most people know, okay, a piano or a guitar. They'll know piano, guitar, a drum, or they won't know minutia though. They're not going to be able to tell you like, oh, I want a viola part there and then a second violin. They're not going to get into that, So none of that, but they leave that up to us, and that's what we do. So a lot of it comes down to that first conversation, and then maybe there's some exploring going on in terms of finding something that's already existing. They may already have something, and they say, here's what we have, and they put it against their rough cut that the editor worked against. They cut the video to it, whatever it is, and then they say, we like this, but we want it to be similar to this, but its own thing, and hitting these places in the picture. And that's called scoring. That's when people talk about scoring music there. And technically it's called post-scoring, which meaning after the picture has been edited, and we have what's called a locked cut.
You're making the music fit.
Then we'll take music and compose against a locked picture, meaning the edit isn't going to change anymore. Well, it can, but basically it doesn't. And we are now working our magic and how we compose based on the scenes and what's happening in this sequence of pictures, whether it's a commercial or whether it's a documentary, a film.
Right.
And then we give that back to the client, and they'll tell us, yeah, we like this part, we like this. Can you change that? Can you do something else?
But in this case, in this case though, what I'm fascinated by is you don't have that visual. You've just got an idea for theme music with no real visual. And
that's a thing too. And I think to your point, Tim, that's also it's theme music for a podcast or a radio program. There is no visual. So getting back to what I talked about before about vibe, I look at the vibe, and wherever you need to go with this is 90% of it. If you can get that, the 10% of tweaking around the edges is fine.
Yeah, I mean, when Tim, and it was interesting because we just asked Brando to do it, and he kindly said, "Sure, I'll do this for you." And when he called me, and I was sitting in a hotel room, he just started to ask me questions, and it wasn't what sort of orchestration do you want, but he's like, I'm kind of thinking upbeat. And I was like, yeah, okay, upbeat. And then you're like, he said, kind of an 80s feel. He said, because, I was like, that'd be kind of cool. He just started to throw, I don't know how to describe it, big picture themes.
Stuff. Yeah. Again, that's vibe. That's finding that, where's that vibe going to be?
So he mentioned these things, and I'm like, oh, yeah, a little bit of that or that. And it wasn't a long conversation.
Yeah.
5-10 minutes.
Right.
It asked a lot of these questions that I had never even thought of. We hadn't started this yet, so I didn't really know. And when it came, I never anticipated when it came back. I mean, I've done logos and things, and I've been around that kind of stuff before.
Yeah, sure.
But you did such a fantastic job of asking the right questions, making me think about it, and then it came back like as a finished thing. It was great.
Thanks, Rex. Yeah, and that's part of what my job is as a composer and as somebody to kind of help to elevate a brand or to elevate an emotion or to help tell a story. I mean, all these things. I mean, it's all kind of intertwined.
Capture the mood.
Capture the mood. That's the vibe, the mood, the whatever that is. And the truth is I've this is crazy because there are, I'm not like I took orchestration and arranging in college. But I didn't focus on orchestration and arranging and strict composing. Now because there's degrees that just go into like, hey, you're going to be going to degree in composition, maybe you get a master's in it, and you study the classic composers. You get into the minutia of what they're doing. Why are they doing this? What was the motivation? I didn't have all that background. I mean, I studied jazz and pop music and engineering. That was my thing.
But I think if anybody ever gets a chance, I'm sure you could do it on YouTube, and I've sat in sessions before, watch a movie where you hear the dialogue without the music.
Oh yeah, it's totally different. Yeah.
It is such a fascinating thing. So you can watch the scene, and preferably it's a movie you know really well.
Yeah.
If you can get the music out
Yeah.
and just watch the dialogue and the visual, and you're like, wait, what?
Yeah,
what just happened?
Exactly.
And it goes the reverse too. You could sometimes you're like, God, this music is nonstop, or like,
well,
it's
that's
too much. You know,
yeah,
like
and
there's a balance.
That's a great point too, because and I think I think there's good reasons and for both of those things happening. When the music works, especially when it's working against a picture, it helps to elevate whatever the story is without getting in the way.
You don't
notice
Yeah,
it.
you don't
right?
notice it.
You
Right.
feel it, right? You feel it.
Yeah.
And like you said, Rex, you take it out.
You notice it when it's gone.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So
not, not when it's happening.
Right.
If it distracts you from.
Right.
Yeah.
If it distracts, and this is a classic thing that I've seen with some composers. Well, they're gonna overcompose, right? They overdo it, and it's not that they are purposefully saying I'm going to overcompose. It's just that they get so into their head of the fact that they want to compose that their job is to refine that whole thought process into how am I actually elevating what I'm doing against this picture? How am I elevating the story?
I'm wondering if that thought process from you, though, and probably what makes you really good at this is, the job of a rhythm section is to support whatever's going on out front, right? Of a rhythm section.
Absolutely.
Piano, bass, drums, the initial rhythm section is to support what's going on out front. And the reason that popped into my head is I got a chance once to run sound for Ray Charles. And I got called downstairs, and I was actually going to be running the board. He called down, and he's like, how you doing? Okay, great. And he's sitting there, and he's got his guys around him, and he said, I'm in the rhythm section, man. He said, everybody wants to turn my piano up too loud. He said, I'm in the rhythm section. He said, so just remember when you're mixing me where I sit in this thing. My voice, fine, but not my piano. And it's been 21 years old. I never forgot. I mean, first of all, I was in there Ray Charles.
Right. 21 seconds.
But I never forgot it because he's right. He said because it's me and people came to see Ray Charles.
Yeah.
They want to turn my damn piano up too loud, and really it should be back in the mix, where it belongs.
Yeah.
Where was this,
true.
Rex?
North Shore Music Theater up in north of Boston. There, yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway.
I mean, maybe if Ray steps out for a piano solo for a minute, you turn it up a little bit.
You can punch it up, but
bring him back down. Right.
But I'm thinking that, so tying it back to what you just said, though, coming from that background, like your musical foundation is as a rhythm section, which is a supporting.
It's a supporting role.
What is going on? I've always said that too about running sound. The best compliment you can get at a show is that they didn't notice the sound.
They didn't know exactly.
Yeah, absolutely.
They didn't notice it. And you just disappeared.
Right.
Into
You disappear.
What they were doing.
Right. And the converse is true because you can ruin something.
Oh
yeah.
Right.
You don't say.
I mean, you can ruin it. Yeah, you guys know. So.
Oh yeah.
I mean, it's you can take a really really well produced thing and all this stuff and just completely screw it up. And I think too the same thing. Getting back to composing, I think that it comes down to. And I think this is just a kind of maturity thing. I mean, it's kind of like, I imagine like, there's like, these young jazz sax player, I'm just being generic here. Sax player could be any musician, but it's like,
But probably a sax player.
Right? So this young jazz sax player, it's like, he's doing this gig and he comes up to his solo and he blows his wad in 8 bars.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, you did everything. It's like, no, give it time.
Yeah.
Allow it. I remember one of my instructors, it was phenomenal. I remember him saying this we were in Miami and I was, in this class learning, just about the basics of playing in a rhythm section. And he's like, soloing, it's like, and this gets back to feel and time. He's like, if you can play one note in time and it feels great, you can repeat that note. It's much better than playing a bunch of notes that have no sensibility at the time. It feels weird. People are going to get into one note that's playing, it's grooving, it's with the band, and it feels great. Rather than somebody going off to the races and they speed up, they rush, they slow down, they go blah, blah, blah. Same thing with drummers. It's like, don't give me like, these crazy fills where you rush and then your downbeat is funny. All these things. again, it's thinking about what it is that you're doing and how it fits in. I think to your point, Rex, about being a rhythm section too. I think as a drummer, you're kind of driving that too, right? You're driving what the band is doing. The band can't play, if you're in an acoustic environment, the band can't play any quieter than you're going to let them as a drummer, right?
Yeah.
Now, obviously, if you got sound reinforcement going on, just turn the mic up. But point is that like as a player, your whole job as a drummer then at that point is to kind of help to glue the time together and to kind of help
and the dynamics
and the dynamics of the group. So again, it's like, you know, all of those things kind of came into my you know, just how I approach thinking about music for picture and music for other things. So.
It's not by accident that you call it the Rhythm Cafe, right?
Yeah, I can't remember. We went through a bunch of names, and I think we just came up with, you know, this place you kind of hang out. And we you know, we could have called it the Harmonic Cafe or the Melodic Cafe.
No.
But
Was Sharna Kwai part of it?
sure. Quiet.
Sorry.
No, it's fine. Homage to our high school days. Yeah. So no, Rhythm Cafe was, we were doing that. I cut my teeth there. Really figured out. You know, worked with a lot of great musicians. We had string players in, horn players, vocalists. We did all kinds of fun projects. You know, and that was a time too that we were, I mean, consoles and analog tape machines and then digital tape machines. We got into Pro Tools kind of early on, and then that whole thing happened, and everything started changing. Again.
Yeah.
We you know, I left Rhythm Cafe in 2006, and went on my own, and I've been on my own since. And
that's Soundcake.
Yeah, Soundcake is my company since I started that in Chicago and then moved to Ohio. But it's doing the same thing. It's just that now I think with technology, we're talking about it, we can do, I mean, the amount of things I can do now compared to what we could do then is just it's astounding. I mean, it's now, and I'll say the democratization of equipment and the cost to get into this game have diminished just beyond belief. I mean, you know, a tape machine, an analog tape machine back in the day could be 50, 60, 80, 100
Tens
grand.
of thousands, yeah.
And a fortune to maintain.
To maintain. You got to have a full-on tech, you know, if you have a console.
And the tape.
And the tape. You know, tape was $150 a reel. And we would use 30 IPs, and we were recording, that's three you know, songs, basically 3 5-minute tunes, you know, if you want 4 tunes maybe.
Right.
And you know, not to mention, I mean, the consoles, the microphones, all the stuff, you know, you had to have machine rooms with air conditioning systems for it. And so it was a lot of infrastructure just to make these things happen. Now it's still there. The studios are still evolved like that. And they're still, but on a whole, the industry has moved. A lot of closures have happened, and to some of these studios, I know people are making records out of their bedroom.
I mean, Billie Eilish, I think, recorded the thing she won on the Grammys. Her and her brother.
In their house. Yeah. So there's, and the truth is that, you know, it's interesting too, because I don't know if you guys know this, but I think now the average number of songs uploaded to Spotify each month is 100,000.
What?
Yeah.
New songs
uploaded.
Wow.
Right. So people talk about how do you make money in this industry anymore? As a musician, as an artist, as a, you know, and they'll ask me, how do you do it? I said, well, I honestly, I don't know.
I have a clue.
I mean,
you
you're
go
not
into
going to
real
sell
estate.
records. Yeah, go into something different. You know, I mean, the truth is, you know, I hate to say that, but there's people who are passionate about doing this and they want to make money. The problem is that what's happened too is that the desire to have something of your work recognized, put on something out there. People now, the bar has been lowered so much in terms of price that it's almost, you're just giving it away. Yeah. So once musicians started to do that, the value of the work, in terms of the cost benefit, it essentially, it's so lopsided in the weight of the big tech.
Even the big acts all make their money touring now.
That's all they do. You can't, because you can't clone touring. You can't.
Yeah, you don't sell.
Right.
You don't, They get their music out there, however they get it out there, to make people buy tickets to come see them on shows.
They do the touring shows, it's merchandising, it's all these 360 deals. So that's how they're making their money.
Let
But,
me ask you
for the
this:
yeah.
does AI scare you or fascinate you?
I think AI. I'm kind of on the. I've got a couple different thoughts about AI. I think AI in terms of, on the political side of things and in terms of disinformation, I think that's a scary thing.
Yeah. With like deep fakes and
all of that, exactly, all the things, right? It's only going to get better,
right?
And there are, I think for
from a production side.
For the production side, it's incredible because you can just type in, hey, I want to see like dirt road truck driving, going through the woods or whatever, and boom, it'll make this image of whatever, It's pretty incredible because you think about that and you go, well, do you have to go shoot anything?
Right.
I mean, you could, how good is this going to be getting? It's astounding. Yeah. And the same thing with music. It's like you can say, well, hey, make this song, kind of like this, kind of like that, type it in, and then it, but here's where I feel that AI will never ever outpace humans. And first of all, it technically isn't intelligent.
Mm-hmm. I think that is a misnomer.
Yes.
I think you're correct.
It's not intelligent.
It's only what you feed it. It's the intelligence that you feed it.
Well, exactly. See, we as human beings, because if you think about it, it's scraping data from the web, right? Mm-hmm. In fact, I just heard all the AI programs have scraped essentially the entire web.
Yeah.
And now they need more content.
Right. They're hungry.
They're hungry for more content. So for human beings need to put more content on the web for AI to scrape these programs, right? Because that's where it gets its data. It's not making its own data from it's just it's being a DJ of data from the web. It's just going, well, let's just take that and take that and I'm going to put them together and make some amalgam of something else, and that's.
I could have fed. It would be an interesting experiment, because I've sat here and talked about a 10-minute conversation with you and a theme song for a podcast, and I'm sure I could have gone on and fed some criteria in and come back with something, and it might have even been in the ballpark of. But I've read stuff that AI's generated, written. I've listened to music, and I've looked at art, and I agree with you that it might get you 80% there. I mean, maybe who knows what happens. But right now, today, it's soulless.
It's soulless, and I think Tim, to that point too. I think that to me is kind of the. I think that's the kind of like channel or lane that humanity will always have an edge on. I don't know of anybody, any director who would say, I would not want to go shoot or direct somebody. And let's say this first of all, live, it's never going to take live. It can't do anything with live. Right. You can't do live theater, live performance, live performance art, whatever. Live is live. And humans will always have that. They may come up with holograms and robots to do it one day, but the point is that humans want to interact with humans, and I think at some point, and I'll just speak for like musicians. If you're in a room with a group of musicians and you're asking them to do something and to work together, there's a thing that happens, just like a group of actors or a group of singers. Yeah. It's never the same two times, and it's the kind of thing where human beings will learn to interact with one another. If you're a musician in an orchestra and you're listening to the people next to you, you're listening to what they're doing. You're working your piece in with what's happening around you. That's something that is very, very human and a very kind of emotional and kind of. There's a lot of skill that goes into that, and the sum of the parts is huge. That is what makes listening to what a great orchestra play. It's like, why does it move you so much? If you're sitting in a room watching an orchestra and listening to a great performance, it's pretty undeniable. The same thing with like just a band or a singer. So,
well, you even started this conversation out talking about a technically proficient, like almost flawless violin player with no
emotive,
heart or so.
They don't emote a feeling. Yeah.
So it is a combination of the two, and the AI can get truly technically proficient, maybe to ways we can't. Yeah. But it also reminds me of, I remember it was early days, when you had the first drum machines and things like that, synthesizers. And part of the problem that they had was it was too perfect, like for your ear sonically. Yeah. Like people would listen to it and you go, something's wrong. Yeah. And I remember them having to create imperfections just so that your brain, because you talked about getting pulled out of something.
Yeah.
It was when you would listen to it, it constantly just pulled you out of whatever you were supposed to be experiencing.
Yeah.
And because our brains expect imperfections. And perfection is it doesn't process correctly.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And so to your point of looking at imagery that's created by AI or whatnot, it looks kind of off.
Yeah,
right? We're like, there's something is just not quite right there. I mean, it still hasn't gotten the hands right. Hands are one of the most, the human anatomy, hands are incredibly difficult to draw and paint. They are
Yeah, well, you see artists over the years, right? You can look back.
You can see them.
And look at the hands.
Look at the hands. So
they could do their face and their body, and the hands, even in like old masterworks, didn't look right.
They didn't look right, right. So the same thing with music. It's like at some point, that 20% or maybe it gets 80% there with AI, and you go like, yeah, that's fine. And there will be a group of people and businesses that say, yeah, great, we can do that.
80% is good enough.
80% is good enough because they don't care. They're going to change out the art on their walls every 2 months. So who cares? It's 80% of this.
And don't forget, there's that group of people that 80% will fool them.
80% will fool them. Well, this is the thing, right? So, but for the people I think that really care, again, it's like somebody wanting to work with somebody and to be able to direct them or to be able to talk to them and interface and feel something. Again, it comes down to feeling. Those things are those. I don't know.
The rhythm.
Whatever it is, just the thing, but the chemistry between people.
Yeah.
And creating. So.
Well, but think about that, and that's got to be a great thing for you, because I know, having moved back here to Ohio, moving your company back here to Cincinnati, you still work with a lot of the same people.
I do.
A lot of the same clients that called you while you were in Chicago.
Yeah.
And that's part of that feel as well. Yeah. There's a feel for the actual work, but
there is. Yeah.
There's that tremendous feeling, that you've been able to generate and create and support that relationship with the person that wants to work with you.
Yeah. I mean, that's, I mean, as a business, I mean, that's what you want. I mean, you can always get somebody to work with one time, but if they don't come back to you, what have you got?
The jazz artist, Pat Metheny.
Oh yeah. Guitar player. Mm-hmm.
So I was on tour somewhere, and they were playing down the theater down the street. The stagehands were like, we couldn't see the show, right? We were basically at the same time. And he's like, if you want to roll down there? He said, we're going to go down for sound check and help the people, whatever. And I had to go in there for sound check. And these, they just, as they do, they just kind of wandered on the stage, and it's jazz. I'm not even really a huge jazz fan, but it was great. I pick it up, and then the car bass, and everybody's screwing around. And then they just start, once they kind of got everybody, the sound guy got everybody kind of teched in. And then they just sat there and jammed for like, I don't know, an hour.
Yeah, just play.
Just play.
Yeah.
It was them just playing.
Yeah.
And to this day, I remember it. I was sitting there thinking, this is so much better than any show I could have ever seen. These guys were just playing. They were doing their love.
A lot of groups are like that, yeah. What they play when they're together just among themselves is worlds apart, worlds away from what they pay.
It's like if you go into a Chinese restaurant, you want to go, hey, what are you guys eating back there?
Yeah.
Forget the sesame chicken.
That's right.
But you're right. It's an amazing thing to see.
Yeah.
Well, I got to play with you.
Yeah.
So, but yeah.
Was that in
jazz band, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah, and
jazz band
and both, yeah,
and concert band.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, and then so we've I've experienced that actually sitting pretty close to you, being on the end of the section, being on
that
the
means
bass
Tim
end of the
Barker
section.
that Brando was playing drums behind you doing the Fame medley.
No, I was actually playing. Was that me?
Oh, no, you guitar. Were you doing guitar?
I think I was playing guitar during the Fame. But Dave Killen was playing the drums. Yes, that was right, doing drums
with that kamikaze headband.
Yeah.
I remember that. That's thing.
Right.
But yeah.
I mean, Dave looked the part. You had to.
Dave was. Yeah.
He wanted to be Stuart Copeland.
You're right. He did. Yeah. Many drummers want to be Stuart Copeland. At least that if in that era, me included. I was always, I may have my favorites. I have my influences as we all do as musicians, but. So that's a thing too that I don't play as much as I used to, just because other things have taken over. So I get behind the kit and I'm like, okay, it's like riding a bike. You got to get out. And let's just get this thing cranking here.
Well, I mean, Tim, you want to? Yeah. I know Brando's not much of you're not much of a sports fan, are you?
So
I dabble in sports. I'm not, but I don't keep up with it. Yeah.
You get one jersey to wear of a sports, football, basketball, baseball, whatever it would be. What name do you have on the back of that jersey?
Probably Jordan.
Nice.
Okay.
I was in Chicago when the Bulls really took off, so that meant a lot to me. Yeah.
If you had to pick a Cincinnati person, since it's a Cincinnati cast, anybody from your childhood growing up, anybody?
Man, it'd probably have to be from the Big Red Machine. It was either Bench or Rose or
Nice.
Okay. I mean, that was back in the day. That was
burned in your brain.
Yeah, totally. So
totally fitting with today being opening day.
Opening day,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, we're recording this an opening day.
That's right. Or Morgan.
Okay.
I mean, it could, so yeah, yeah. So
That's great.
I do have one little story that I just wanted to say, and this is just kind of and this will also just kind of put a point on the idea of how you try and decipher direction, right, from somebody, creative direction. So I was working on this commercial for Coca-Cola. This is for Coca-Cola Japan, and there's the imagery, the picture is basically there's these I don't know, there's like a long conference table in this room. There's like 10 of these Japanese businessmen, and they're all in suits and ties, and they're sitting around the table. And the writer was from Japan, and he just started working for Leo Burnett, I think probably within that year. So he came, I think he was I think he lived in Tokyo, and he came here. He spoke pretty good English. So we were there talking, and I was asking him, I said, so what do you hear in this commercial? Like, what kind of music are you hearing? And he said, you know the movie The Untouchables with Kevin Costner? I said, yeah. He says, you know the scene when Kevin Costner and Al Capone, was Kevin Costner's play? He played
Elliot Ness.
Elliot Ness, yeah. Elliot Ness and Al Capone on the bridge. I said, I remember that. I said, I'd have to kind of see it again. I said, you want something kind of like the music that's in that scene? He said, no. I want the feeling that you get from watching that scene.
Oh, wow.
That's what I had to decipher. I had no idea what feeling he got watching that
He's
scene.
like, he didn't remember the music. He just remembered what he felt.
The feeling.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, I had that Hollywood singer tell me to make it sound more green during rehearsal.
That's right.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what this is. What does green mean to her?
Exactly.
I don't know.
What is green? Exactly.
Green
and that was one of those nod and touch a few faders.
Exactly.
Of course, I didn't change anything.
That's right.
But,
exactly.
The orchestra started. She stopped them abruptly. Mr. Soundman, whatever you did, it's perfect. Make sure that's the sound we have for tonight. And that was the day. After that rehearsal, I sat down, and that's when I started making the change from audio to video, because I know what green is there. I don't know what it is here.
That's just great.
Did you go watch The Untouchables then? Did you go?
No, I didn't. Yeah. We actually we worked out something that
was blacked out in Japan.
Wasn't that at all? It's right. It's completely different.
It was a royalty issue. That was Ennio Morricone, wasn't it?
Yeah. Yes, I think he did.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So no, it was nothing like what he did. So anyway.
Well, all right. Well, thanks so much.
Absolutely, guys.
Man.
Thank you for having me. It's been a blast.
The NattyCast is proudly brought to you by Pago Lago Productions. The show is hosted by Tim Barker, Rex Stull, and Ron Thomas. Produced and edited by Matthew Lake and associate produced by Ethan Spanja. Special thanks to Sadie Kern at Pop Gun Flow for the graphics and to Brando Triantafillou for the original theme song. Feel free to follow us at _NattyCast on Instagram or head to our website, thenattycast.com. You can get this show wherever you get your podcasts, and we'll see you next time.